There are people who chase stability, and there are those who can't help but chase change. Today's guest has done both. From nearly becoming an electrical engineer, to spending years in advertising, to helping to build a culture consultancy, and now playing a key role at one of Malaysia's most interesting property startups, the Makeover Guys. His story is a reminder that sometimes the best path forward isn't a straight one. What stands out about him isn't just how many pivots he has made, but the way he's learned to make peace with them, to see each shift as a new story worth living. In this episode, we'll talk about what it means to reinvent yourself again and again, to find purpose in uncertainty, and to keep your curiosity alive even when fear is loud. This is a story about the courage to keep moving, not because you have all the answers, but because you believe the next chapter could be better. So let's dive in. John Ong, thank you for joining us today as our guest.
So thank you for having me. And wow, after hearing all that, I probably need to spend more money to bring you on as my hype man everywhere I go, man.
Let's start with this. You're now with the Makeover Guys. So what does your role look like, and what drew you to this company in the first place?
Okay, so currently I'm the head of corporate projects at the Makeover Guys. So for those of you who know about the Makeover Guys, we are actually a renovation company. And what I do in the Makeover Guys is that I work with the property developers, which is actually the B2B side. So normally in renovations, you have people who deal with end customers, owners. So I work with property developers, agencies, the business-to-business relations kind of thing, to explore collaborations to enable people to enjoy better homes. So this could be things like, for homeowners in Malaysia who's maybe struggling to buy, number one, you're already struggling to buy a home of your own. And next is the furnishing your entire home, turning the four walls into something that you call your own, something that's livable. And that's another challenge as well. It's both very costly, it is very stressful, it's full of hassle. And I think this organization is set up with this vision and mission, right, to simplify the process, to make it enjoyable, to make it affordable as well. So that's why I do at a day-to-day basis at Makeover Guys.
And if we were to go through your journey, could you take us through what was the thought process as you moved from the 4 different parts of your journey? How about let's start from the beginning?
Okay, I think growing up, if you ask my family members, my parents especially, or even my siblings, I definitely am a very difficult child to deal with growing up. I'm not the kind of person who sits still. There is a point of time, I think they probably think that I have ADHD. They never sent me to be diagnosed. And I just couldn't sit still, and I just make my own rules. So they always tell the story of me being in kindergarten. I think I'll just do whatever I feel like at the moment. So if I feel like putting my feet up on the table, I'll do so. If I feel like pulling out my lunchbox and eating, even though it's not the right time to eat, I'll do so. And I feel bored of class, I'll just walk out and sit on the swing on my own, just like that. So I just do everything on my own terms. That's how it kind of started. And I think growing up in high school, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm bored now, I'll just do whatever I want. And I sometimes I'll ponting class or do this and I'll do that. And to me, it's like, life is just so much more interesting than to be locked into the confines of the 4 walls and then listen to your learning that is very audible. But that doesn't mean I wasn't interested about learning new things. So I was very keen in learning concepts about biology, physics, but when it came to the practice, right, all the formulas and all the numbers, when there's no meaning behind it, right, I just took it as it's very boring. It doesn't engage me at all. So I just totally failed those other aspects of learning, right? So I think that's also the first part about understanding myself. And I think the first few pivots actually started even after when I left high school. So many may not know, when I started, right after I graduated from high school, I had no idea about what I wanted to do. And I'm sure this is something that's quite normal or common among people who just finish high school. You've done the ropes, and I was in a similar situation. And back then, being the oldest in the family, I had this strong sense of okay, I need to do my parents proud, and do the responsible thing. So what's the most responsible thing in the career back then? You have your usual doctor, engineer, lawyer, right? So I didn't want to be a doctor like my dad because I feel that it's a big undertaking lah. So next best thing will probably be engineer. I actually signed up to be to engineer. And my application was actually rejected lah. They say because I was colorblind. There was actually a huge commotion among my family and friends. Say, how can they reject? We should fight for you to get into this degree and study electrical engineer. When I heard the news, I was actually relieved lah, because maybe this is a sign. I mean, although I didn't know what I want, I wasn't sure that this was actually it lah. So it was a sense of relief lah. So what do you do next, right? When you have no idea, you try to keep your options open. Naturally, the thought process was study A-levels, and not only A-levels, did A-level science, because that will give you the best options. You can still go into any art-related subjects later. Still didn't learn my lesson, still very rebel, still leave to go and play at cyber cafe. So sorry, mom and dad, wasted your money. Thankfully, didn't spend too much, didn't go to some expensive university or college back then, but still is money. So that was a wake-up call for me, like a turning point for me as well. To not let people down and realize that you also have a responsibility to do your part. Parents did their hard work to bring you there. So that was also like a turning point for me. I need to turn that down to be a bit more responsible than being very free-spirited. I grew up a very free-spirited and very carefree person. And that was a turning point for me to let me have a think about what I really want to do. But I still had no clarity about what to do next. So I had to choose the next compromise. What is the science and what is the arts? I was actually quite a creative person. I think a lot of people used to give me feedback that I'm quite an outgoing creative person. So I wanted something that's creative, but I didn't want to become an artist lah. And of course, growing up in a Asian Chinese family, you want practical, make money. So you don't want to be the struggling, starving artist on the road or be subjected to like, you just do design only, that kind of thing. So of course, I didn't want to do that lah. I naturally ended up signing up for advertising because it had a very nice blend of the business and the marketing side of it and the creative aspects of it lah. And I think my parents also, through that experience, learned to talk to me a little bit more, try to give me assurances. I don't think they've pressured me, but they try to make it even more evident that they're here to support me. So I'm very grateful for that. I did very well in advertising, and I started my first internship and job in advertising lah. So that was how I, even from high school to college and then to my first job, it was actually quite a series of like a bit of a maneuvering and self-discovery throughout that process. So that's number one. From advertising, I quickly figured out a few things. So in the course of the 3 to 4 years, I quickly figured out that number one, I didn't like corporate, because I realized that in corporate, right, like big, large companies, there is a little bit of like the culture of like there's a lot of posturing involved. There's a lot, and especially in advertising back then. Certain industries were probably less so, but in the advertising industry, in certain size organization, you kind of like do things to be seen. And I started to realize that, hey, I wanted to do the job. I didn't want to be adding an extra effort to like posturing, managing people, dealing with politics. So I quickly realized I didn't like this. And I had this experience both, not so much on the company level, but working with the clients, because I could observe, right, my clients telling me to posture my work so they will look good in certain people or they don't offend certain people in their department. So I found it like, like that one. Yeah, so that was a very strange experience. I think that was also one of the things that made me realize that I did the best I could in advertising. So I think before I even left the industry, actually within the advertising realm, right, I spent about 4 to 5 months interning at a mid-sized agency. The bosses that I interned with, they left the company and they started their own agency. And because when I worked with them, I had a lot of values that I shared with them, because they also wanted to just do the work. They couldn't tahan the culture and they want something to call their own. So they started their own company and they actually called me in, and having interned with them, I basically got my first job without having an interview lah. So I was quite grateful for that. And I started on this journey knowing that, hey, I like this kind of work because it's a small startup. And I quickly realized that I love working in the startup because number one, my passion, learning and the curiosity of learning quickly is satisfied in that way lah. Because number one, in a small startup, right, for better or for worse, when we're in a team of 4, so you have 2 bosses, 1 designer, and I'm the first client servicing or account management person. So very quickly, you will know that your quality of work is not sugar-coated by any supervisor who's supposed to take care of you or give you feedback. The boss himself, the owner of the company, will tell you your work is good or not good, and they'll give it to you to your face. And you have to take it from there. But at the same time, you get to see the way he works. And also my 2 bosses. So you get to learn firsthand from not managers with like 5 years experience, but from founders and bosses who are like 20 years experience. And suddenly, what is the wealth of experience that accelerated your growth? So I was very into that. That really kept me very fulfilled for about 4 years.
Wow. John, there's so many threads to follow, but can I just back up a bit? and rewind to your A levels because I wanted to ask you questions about your A levels. So yeah, when you were talking about how you were choosing your A levels and you still didn't know what to choose, what was going through your mind then? Because you mentioned that you're a very free-spirited person and you always do things at your own terms. And how come for A levels you are like a bit? You said you were relieved that it didn't go through, that you don't have to take up, was it engineering, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So why you didn't tell your parents that, no, this is not something that I want? Because, growing up, you have been a very free-spirited person. You always do things at your own term. And then when did that realization come in, or when did that sense of responsibility that, oh, I need to make my parents proud, or I need to follow what my parents want and choose engineering because it's a safe path?
I think I'm not quite sure where the switch flipped, but I realized that I think growing up being a carefree or free-spirited person, right, also comes with its downsides. So when people cannot get what you're going at, and like I fight a lot with my parents as well, right? So as a young kid growing up, insisting on what I want, I wanted to do these things I want to do, right? No one should stop me. Very headstrong, rebel, right? But at the same time, I also realized that my actions also causes consequences, lah. Like you'll probably hurt my parents, if they're out, they're just here to look out for me, right?
Were
And I
there
think
any instances that, you choose to do your own things at your own terms and then you actually experience consequences which is not positive that made you, think through it and then made that decision of like, maybe certain things I need to listen and I need to follow the path?
quite a few, but I think the A levels one was the one that's quite a big deal, because I think I thought that the way I was operating in high school just get me by, right? And the reality is I didn't. And then I knew that, my parents pay for my tuition fees, and I'm really grateful for that. So knowing that it's like hard-earned money and salary, there's like, in a way, number one, down the drain. Number two is that it's also my time. I think they also don't want me to like keep floating about and being free-spirited and not having a care in the world, but when actually I'm also setting back my own career development or professional development, right? So that became something like a sobering reality, lah. And they didn't ever mention so much about it. In fact, they never mentioned that they were disappointed in me in terms of the A-level results. I just had the reflection that if I was in their shoes, I'll feel like it's a bit of a waste. Maybe they feel that it's a path of discovery. But for me, it's like there's a bit of a tinge of that, lah. So that also made me feel, no, I should also not let them down as well. So I'm in my life, I was always trying to balance both of this, like what I really want and my role. And I think this is normal part of life, because I think we live in communities and we live in the family unit, right? And I think that comes with the price to pay. But I think we choose to pay that price because the upside is the trust, the family connection. I think that's worthwhile. So this is not a recent realization. This is not an old realization back then, but it's more of like I used to see it as like a burden. Right? So older people might think, I have this responsibility. I'm a son, I'm a husband, I got all this responsibility. But I think I now see it more of a privilege. It's a privilege to have expectations because you are part of a community, or it's a privilege to be a son, and then they have parents have certain expectations of you, or you are a husband or a wife, certain expectations of you because you're in that relationship, and that's the price you pay for that privilege. I think I now see it in a very different way. And also, so that's something that I also see as well.
That sounds like wisdom to me.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
But did this relationship with your parents play a critical role in your pivot from electrical engineering into advertising then?
I think in a way, yes. I think part of the story is that helping me confront it as well, like be a bit more direct about it. But I think at the same time, there was a friend of mine, my childhood friend I grew up with as well. He went into advertising, and it was actually through that he introduced it to me. Then I was like, oh, because this subject meets both criteria. And like me, I don't commit. So refuse to commit, I want to always play all the sides, right? So that seems like a happy medium. I think that was also, when it all came together in the perfect timing, I think that was great for me to go into advertising.
So John, like when I hear you speak about at the crossroad, don't know what to do, you go to A levels, I feel that your position and a lot of the young people these days, especially those who's just finished SPM, going to finish SPM, they don't know what to do. You have been through that journey. So how would you advise them? Because you have gone through that path, right?
I would say talk to people. Actually, maybe what I didn't mention as well is I think during this process of the engineering and advertising, I did speak to people. I did also speak to people in the industry. So I grew up in the church. I had church members who are in certain different professions. So I took the time to catch them and say, hey, can I sit down with you and just get you to share a little bit about what was your experience like in this industry? What do you like about it? What you don't like about it? What are the requirements? What are some of the traits that's required? And then try to have like a process of elimination. Like, okay, does this thing I like, does it gravitate to this? Can I do this? Does this leverage on my strengths? Can I take the worst parts of this job? Do I like the high points of this job? So I was privileged to be able to ask around in your community. So that's also the advice I will ask. I will probably give as well to people who just finished SPM or maybe in college, not quite sure what they want to do. Find family members, find people who are older, ask them, people you trust to give you like unfiltered advice. People who are not going to sugarcoat it for you, and maybe just prepare a set of questions that maybe that would resonate with you.
Yeah, I think those are very helpful questions that they can mull over, like what question they should actually ask people around them. Yeah, thanks.
It's also the same framework that I use for my next move, pivots in jobs as well. So I think I spent more time in my interview asking like the interviewees more questions about their business, about their business model, some of the things that change. Sometimes when that's the thing about interviewing for startups, because when you talk to the founders, right, you get to have a conversation with them about what's the thing that's on your mind right now with regards to your business. And I guess maybe that's also one of the reasons why that sets me apart from other candidates, and maybe that's why it gravitates towards these founders, right? Because when I go in, I'm not asking questions about the role. I didn't start the interview asking questions about the role. I went in, start asking about, I know this is your nature of business. Tell me more about what grew you to start. In fact, I talked about their vision first, right? What was their passion? Because for me, I wanted to work sitting in the front row of the founders working their magic, because I was also chasing that thing that was like, hey, what would be the one thing? Because I haven't figured out what I want in my life. What would be the fulfilling thing that will be making me wake up every day looking forward to work? But yet, these are the people who are already started businesses, already have this thing going on. Why not I ask them? So I tend to ask them these things and then say, okay, great. So what are some of the bottlenecks or what are the challenges you're facing in this business right now? And I try to okay, how can I help you with that? And suddenly it's no longer confined in that role anymore. It's about maybe I can play a role to help you fix this business problem, or I kind of lead them down the path to this role. I never really talk about like the hours, compensation or whatever. It was really the first part, the long conversation, and I get to make a decision like, hey, do I vibe with the vision and the values and this person? Because essentially this person who's hiring me is going to be my sifu, right? I want to learn from this sifu. And to me, it's like a chemistry check also. Like, will I enjoy learning from this person? Does this person have values that I too stand for as well? And does this mission, right, this job, right, like for the first job is advertising, is really about reinventing not say reinventing, but really doing things a bit differently than a normal corporate company. That's something I was gravitating towards as well. And it was also my first compass in every pivot that I do.
Right. And with that, when you pivoted from advertising to the following companies, what was it about the companies that made you go, all right, this is something I want to be part of?
Okay, good question. So I think in order for me to move, I had to have usually there's a push factor and there's a pull factor, right? So I think that was the first part so going back to the story you're saying about the client sending me an email. So unfortunately, there are always compromises. So I'm always trying to see how I can improve the situation. So I spent some time working in this industry, and I quickly then realized that you got pros and cons. So in the bigger companies, it's the corporate staff that I didn't quite like. I had mentioned this now. But they are the ones who have access to top tier clients, the ones with let's say, for example, your L'Oreal's, your big accounts, holding things, right? And these are the ones that you work with fellow marketeers who are top class because they hire top class people, right? But when you're a startup, or your client pool, and especially when you're establishing yourself in the first couple of years, will only be SMEs. And your counterparts, the clients, will likely be maybe family members of the founders who are not marketing trained, who will not speak the same lingo as you. And then the way that they will maybe give feedback on your work is not grounded on the same thinking as you are. So And that's the story. And they may not be very equipped to tell you what they want as well. So it's your job to lead them, which is fine. You have very funny stories like clients sending me an email, no body copy, only the subject header and the screenshot for website. And the only thing that was written on the subject header was, John, please make this look nice. And I have to spend like a few minutes trying to determine, so what exactly about the website they want us to make it look nice? So this is one of the many stories. And I'm sure a lot of people in the advertising industry also face some of this like funny or even horror stories. Or it's kind of like our battles scars. Right? But that's fine. We wear that on the, we just wear it on our shoulders and just keep going, right? That's not too bad. I think the one that really kind of broke me is kind of like, as someone who really values the impact, being able to see the impact of my own work, right? Sometimes when people don't get it and they give you feedback that is not on the same page, so you will give something that's grounded in like research or market insights, a lot of thinking, and the feedback is going to be like, because my wife or my family member doesn't like this color, can you put this thing in, that kind of thing. And it becomes very subjective and then reject your idea. It's kind of, the analogy I would use is like, you're maybe a doctor who's supposed to give advice to a patient, and the patient is probably going to say, no lah, I'm just going to follow this remedy that my Yima or Kuche or my sister, cousin, whoever tell me to just follow this traditional medication. It will work one. I don't want to listen to you. It is your choice. This is our recommendation. You'll put it in writing. Then you do that for 1 year. And then at the end of the year, they come back to you. So actually, what do you do for me, a doctor? And you feel like, oh, you reject all my solutions. And then now you come back and tell me I didn't do my job. In advertising, that was something that is very demotivating. You spend so much time and you feel that your work amounts to nothing. So that's something that is a big struggle for me. You already have to put in the long hours anyway. So, but to have your work like kind of feel like
trauma.
Definitely. So that was something that I even had a conversation with my bosses then. And to their credit, they really try to pick clients that share values, right? But needs must. And sometimes I just came to a point that I think had enough lah. And I've always have very fond memories, a lot of respect for my bosses there. But I felt that it was also time for me to move on. So that was the push factor. The pull factor to another company was, so while I was with this company in advertising, I had the opportunity to be trained by another company. When they found out after I left, then the person called me. The bosses called me. So Janet from 95% called me and she was like, hey, can you come and meet me for lunch? So I had the experience of being able to go for lunch and not properly in the interview process and then got hired on the spot. So that was also another funny story. But what drew me to her again, it fulfilled my criteria of like, I would like to work with Sifu or Maestro. And Janet, being a participant in the training programs, right? Just watching her work, her magic of being able to get people to transform, right? And I love that. And I wanted to learn, hey, what is it like to be someone with that kind of stature that can move people in the room? Such a powerful communicator, right? And I wanted to develop those skills. And I felt that, okay, great. My first job made me professional. So there are a lot of qualities that the people give me feedback today still when I'm on top of things. It's because of my training and grounding in my first job, and fantastic professional. And then the second one is really how to communicate with people and be human, be able to move people by not through instruction, but by inviting them, enrolling them, to persuading them to see the benefit for themselves if they were to take my advice. So I found that to be very, very powerful. And I just wanted to be a part of that team. And of course, the vision, right, was very powerful as well. It was actually to fill the world with like love, peace, and joy, but through enabling them to overcome their limiting beliefs. So that was a start, right? Also on the business side of things, they were actually going through a pivot of their own. They were trying to transform from a regular training company into a culture consultancy. Then naturally, when I go through the interview process, I was asking, hey, so what made you want to change? And then the story was shared like, hey, the business challenge was during this time, we could enable talents in the training room to feel very inspired and they're moved. But when they go back into their organizations, right, they felt trapped. They're back into that environment that is maybe hindered by the process, the policies, or the culture there, so to speak. And then this company said, well, we want to play a bigger game. So the vision to me is like, wow, powerful. They want to turn workplaces into joy places. What a fantastic vision, right? And at the same time, from business level, I thought being part of this pivot is very interesting because how can you turn a training company into a culture consultancy? But it's like such a big game to play. You're coming from I'm a trainer, HRD to like, I'm now playing the see clients game, being a consultant, leading change management in the 12 months or 18 months program, the different kind of selling. So that was a very exciting time. And I wanted to be a part of this team. Again, the desire for impact is there, and the learning curve is great. And I wanted to learn from this Sifu, the next one. So to me, all those things kind of fell into place. And I immediately said, yeah, I want to be a part of this team. And Jenna also asked me, hey, so when can you start? So I was like, check my calendar. So actually, I'm quite free now. So you want to start now? So after lunch, I remember after lunch, we went straight away to the office and started briefing me on the spot already. So that was a very, very nice story to look back on.
Nice.
Well,
Nice. What about the next chapter of yours? That's Makeover Guys, right?
So before the Makeover Guys, I wanted to take a bit of a career break when I got married. So actually, when I got married, I told my wife that, hey, why should we take a regular 3 to 6 weeks honeymoon? We've been working, why not we take a 6 months honeymoon? And of course, her eyes light up, like the idea, to work, right? So, and I think this came from this strong desire of mine to just live life a little bit differently on my terms, right? See, this is the part that's like, every time you see there's like a chance for my carefree rebel to come out, right, you will express itself that way. So after like working a couple of years, by this time I've been working about 7 years plus, almost 8 years. I've done enough for this, like pretending that I belong in a boardroom. It's time to be rebel again, right? So I floated this idea to my wife and said, hey, this is the last time. I'm 31 at the time. And I'm like, why not I apply for the working holiday visa in New Zealand? So we tried a few rounds, and although we failed, managed to get it the second time around. And we found ourselves in New Zealand, did some work here and there just to get by. But we really had a fantastic honeymoon, albeit not in 5-star hotel, but they say 5 million star hotel, cost camping, right? Save money. Fantastic experience. And when I came back, I did have opportunity to join back 95% and a few other options. And maybe even go back to advertising. And during that time, my sister was working at the sister company at the Makeover Guys, and she actually shared the vacancy with me. And that really piqued my interest because, number one, up to this point, 7 years, I spent working with founders. And there's something that I learned over time. Although I learned great skills, I also developed the belief that in order to start a business, you have to have a strong passion and commitment for a certain topic. So like for my first boss, it's about advertising. And the second boss is about personal growth and changing environments that way. And to me, somehow that idea of committing to a passion like forever and ever doesn't sit well with me. And it still doesn't sit well with me today. I often judge myself, like, am I too flaky, or am I not courageous enough to commit to something? Or is my life going to be just that endless pursuit of new discovery? I actually feel happier about that my life is like a series of evolution. Also, it's kind of like the film The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and the guy that gets up to very random things. There's even like a TED talk about this guy who tried many, many different things as well.
maybe you have not found one
Maybe.
that you really
And
like and you're still finding.
maybe. And maybe at different seasons, you are passionate about different things and you just collect these different things. And your life is not defined by that one thing, but the collection of colorful things, and you can be very eccentric. So makes me sound like a hippie, but I love that idea of that the color and different experience and the funny stories you have. You can relate to people, because to me, people is just so diverse. It's so rich and colorful, right? I mean, even before I started my first job, I had the opportunity to hitchhike around Europe, and I managed to observe the different ways people are living life. So you have people who are like raising the entire family, like homeschooling them on yachts. And we have people who graduated in New Zealand, decided to sail their way from New Zealand back to Norway, spending 18 months to do that. So like you get to hear all the stories. And then when I'm traveling, I try to make time to talk to people who are like working there or living life very differently, who like hospitality, who are so far away from their home, right? Some of them are like, for example, maybe they're from England, but or from Korea, and then they found themselves in Thailand, right? Working in hospitality, and then they're living their life there, like Italian guy working in Thailand or in Bali, so on and so forth, right? And you just strike out a conversation. I've met a tour guide in Greece who basically he only works 6 to 9 months in a year. So I found that very fascinating. He only works throughout the summer, and then he's like multilingual. And I found that, wow, this really shatters my idea about work, about life. And that reinforces that, I want to be a rebel some more. I can do whatever I want, right? So that really reinforces it. And I've been hungry to chase references for that. So that when life gives you a lot of proof that life can be lived so many different ways, right? Then I think I'm doing myself a disservice, right? By just choosing that one path and then just locking all my options are. So that's kind of like my thought process to that.
I really like that. I think especially for our listeners who are looking at their careers, their life, and asking themselves, is this all there is? So for somebody who has met people of, different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures, and also somebody who has moved through like 3 to 4 different industries, what advice do you have for somebody who is right at that point, right? Wondering what's there to life? Is this all there is? What's your advice for them?
I think my advice for people who are wondering what's there in life, right, is to really go out and discover it for yourself first. Right? Try to travel. And I don't mean like take a holiday package and then just sightsee, but try to talk to people or like mingle. I mean, if you try backpacking, you probably end up in hostels. You probably listen to stories of people who live life very differently. For me, I managed to hitchhike, so I get to sit in the car and talk to people who live life very, very differently as well. So you get really a taste, a sample of the culture and the way of life from different people as well. So get a lot of references. I think today we have the internet as well. I'm always very inspired by people who they share clips. Like I think in Malaysia, we have people who are car camping. We have a lady who solo car camps. We have a couple who's living their life. They quit their day jobs and then they are, driving around their vans. Because maybe they're pursuing something that they're valuing at that point of time in their life, and they manage to make the finances work and they make a call that's important to them right now. I think that's great. So I would say go out and look for references and watch videos, talk to people, try to validate certain things and try to pair it with the values and see whether that is something that is your compass and that's what you value as well.
Oh, John, I really,
I'm so
really
glad-
resonate with what you say about traveling and, how you gain so much experiences, because I also say the same thing to my students, like go and travel. When you were saying that, I was just thinking, I don't know where I heard from someone that after you've gone and traveled for so long, 6 months, when you went to New Zealand or trying different things here, listening to so many stories, and then when you come back to where you used to be, it's very difficult to fit in anymore because you have grown, but the people behind you stays where they are, the same. So for you to fit in back with all the knowledge and all the experiences that you have, it is just impossible. I was just listening to your stories, right, from the beginning till now. There's one thing that is similar, which is you're very hungry to learn, especially under the feet of the founders. And I felt that you are going to start something on your own and you have not found what is it, but you're just trying to learn as much as you can and figure out as you go along the way. You know that all these experiences, talking to people are very valuable. And that's also your way to process what you like, what you don't like, and different things of all in together at one, it can be your career, it can be your life, it can be anything. But basically it's just learning and listening, because that inspires you and that brings life out of you.
Yeah, I feel like a sponge sometimes. So I think one of the things that I remember with Makeover Guys, so what really drew me to Makeover Guys is I've been working with founders who are passionate at that point, but these two founders very interesting in the sense that they didn't start out being passionate about interior design, right? They merely saw a gap in the market and they say, hey, I want to solve my own problem. Can I start something that can solve other people's problem as well? And for the first time, I'm like, hey, this is a very interesting take of entrepreneurship. I wanted to learn something like that and not be tied to the thing, to the subject, right? And say, I'm going to commit to this because these people can easily pivot into a different line of business, right? And still make it work. Right. So I was very, very interested in learning at the feet of these entrepreneurs. Right? So Gavin and Vince, not only were they very inspiring, and they were also at the same time, to me, age gap or group level is a different dynamic as well. So suddenly, instead of like parent figure, right, they are like, as your bosses as parent figures, now they are like your taiko, only a couple of years older than you, and you kind of like get you a little bit more, and it's a bit less intense as well. So for the first time, it's a little bit strange, but I say, hey, don't block it out. Try to embrace this new thing, and I think it's been the best decisions I've made so far. Like I think being able to see how they operate. Were there always challenges? Of course, always challenges as well. And seeing the way that they dare to play a bigger game also is very, very interesting. They're truly visionaries, lah, especially in this industry. And I've been very privileged to learn from them. And I've always tried to like, I remember the first couple of months, I would try to like buy them lunch so that I can listen to their life story. So they'll tell me, oh, tell me more about your first few startups. They'll tell me about all the way the 9 companies they set up, and then all the success and the failures. And then they'll tell me about the ongoing challenges. And even in now it's 7+ years with them, you get to see firsthand, like, you get to like see, the value of like picking partners, and sometimes how do you resolve conflict among partners. I think one of the common things that I've seen is that across these 3 companies, right, the 2 founders are super tight. Like nothing can shake that. And I think that also made me feel that entrepreneurship journey should not be a lonely journey. I don't think I'm the kind of person who is like a solopreneur, nor am I a solo traveler. Can I do it on my own? I could do it. I've done it myself as well. But I don't think it brings the same level of joy as having someone that walked that journey with you and to kind of like be there to validate your experience. And sometimes, for example, if you go traveling, when you travel with a group of friends, someone else tells their account of the same story that happens, keeps the memory alive. And I feel that that's beautiful. So I feel that you should not be alone, lah. But that being said, it's so difficult to find partners that you can work with, right? In entrepreneurship, especially. So I also started to observe, and I started to learn a lot, like what are the criteria for identifying and working with potential partners? How do you resolve conflict? What's the pillar of it? So I've seen some that like broke apart, and I've seen some that like really withstood and still continues to withstand the test of time, right? 20+ years and counting. It's so inspiring. And I'm always like very jealous, and I'll be like, wow, I wish I could have that for myself. You imagine building projects among people who are closest friends, your inner circle, and then you can like not only build meaningful things together and add value to the community, but share the experience and go drink and have fun together, on the front line. So I really want for myself, even though I don't know what subject it is right now, right? So yeah.
Nice. So on that note, right, since you talk about the lessons that you have picked up about building your own tribe, if I may, or your own group of fellow travelers, if I may, whether it's in business or in life or traveling. So what are some of the things that you have picked up that has been time and time again proven true based on all the stories that you have seen, whether it is the teams that broke apart or the teams that stayed for 20 over years? Yeah, what are some of the criteria?
Even though it may not be fully articulated, maybe when you spend enough time with them, right? I think to me, there are some non-negotiables. Like number one, you probably share some common values in the way you approach life and how you will operate. I think that's number one, the first non-negotiable. So let's say if you are someone who is very uncomfortable with the idea of like integrity, but someone else is like very opportunistic, right? I think you will not be able to vibe very well because they're going to put you into very difficult situations where you feel you have to compromise on your own integrity, things like that, or maybe the way of communicating. So that's like the bare basics, right? Then the next layer will then be how do you approach life? How do you communicate with each other? I think those are like another set of ingredients lah. Then, okay, because I feel that when you find your tribe, right, it's also a very similar process. Like, let's say you're into an interest group. I think even within the interest group, right, there are many subsets. So let's say if you're into running, there are so many different running clubs. Why do you choose this one? It's probably the people at a certain values or characteristics, and not here to judge because there's just something here for everybody. Like I'm probably not the one that likes to dress up very well and go and party, and nothing against them. For those people who enjoy it, good for you. I'm happy for you. And sometimes I do want to be like that, but I not all the time tend to be a little bit more, I don't know, sometimes I see myself a little bit socially awkward, but I try to like, maybe it's because in that circle, I'm a bit more awkward, but in other things, I try to vibe a little bit more because certain topics is just more interesting to me lah. And there's no right or wrong. You just have to find that circle that you click with and then you take it from there lah. So that, I think that's the second layer lor. Finding that part that you rather not be talking about people, you rather be talking about the idea that you're building, you're talking about how to improve yourself, because I feel that there's better time spent. You naturally will find the circle of people who are thinking likewise. So sometimes you feel it on lah. Like sometimes when you're not engaged, right, in this setting, for some people, this kind of topics is disengaging for them. And nothing right or wrong with that lah. You can choose what suits you, right? Because maybe you believe that your life should be filled with a lot more color, and I'm all for that, right? On those terms. So you pick your timing in your season of life and also the circle accordingly lah. So I'm also learning that lah.
Right. This is quite nice, especially for our listeners who might be thinking about entrepreneurship or who may be in the phase where they are just yearning for either a different community or to find their own tribe. I think this could be like some key nuggets. Yeah.
And go and talk to people as well, because like even within the entrepreneurship circle, there's so many circles. Like I've talked to people who are in like BNI, EO, Vistage, and so on and so on. So many. And this is to name the few that I know of because of my bosses who are joining those groups, right? And even within the groups, there's even like chapters. And then so within those chapters are the people that whether they can vibe with and they talk about it and say, hey, can I vibe with this person or vibe with that person? You just naturally have to go through that process. I think that process of making that first step, you do that volume of discovery, right? It's also a journey of self-discovery for yourself. It's always a data point. So I don't think it's wasted lah. So if you go cycle around a little bit and try new things, I don't think it's wasted. I just think that you learn a little bit more about yourself, you grow a little bit more, you pick up a data point, and you learn about the other person or the community as well.
Nice. So I can't help but notice this. It sounds like you have two phases in your life so far, in your career specifically. The first 7.5 years was about following like all the sifus, right? The mentors, people who have designed your own craft. And then right now, you have also spent another 7.5 years in your current role following two people who may not be craftsmen in their own way, like the first chapter of your life, but people who just wanted to solve problems, right? Banded together and then solved. So does that mean that a third chapter might be coming soon? And if yes, then what would that look like?
I think definitely yes lah. And I think that phase has always been, I think I'm on the edge of it right now. And therefore, that's also the hunger. And I think, don't get me wrong, I also think that these bosses I'm with also, right? I think they are craftsmen in their own right as well. They have their own flair. Right. It's just not manifested in the traditional sense of things. I think they're very creative people and they're very interesting strategists. So I also learned a couple of things from there. But I think the time has come, right, for me to not stand by the sidelines anymore, lah, right? And I don't think I can, again, the price to pay and the privilege, right? Now, if I really want the privilege of that tribe I'm seeking for, I need to go out there and take the plunge. How can I say that I want to have tribe of entrepreneurs if I'm not an entrepreneur? So I have to take that step. Zoom in a little bit, then of course there's like the entrepreneur phase, which I'm currently in right now, right? You have to also find fellow people who are in there, in that similar space. They're also in that transition. They're like, I'm not happy here. I'm also chasing what's the next. I'm also looking for a community people who also want, let's hold our hands together. We are all scared. So can we all figure this out together and make it a little bit less scary? And I think it's nice. Then within that pool, you could find, okay, you think we can make this work? Okay, let's try our project. So I'm privileged to be here in this.
Yeah, I was just thinking, what are your fears? So that people who have fears can identify the different fears that we have so that we can move together.
Yeah, and maybe this is something that is relevant for perhaps if you're a mid-career professional and like you've probably, like myself, like spent some time building out your reputation and your skills and to a certain extent. And for some of you, it could be like they call it golden handcuffs because it's like the same thing that's keeping you thriving right now is also the thing that's holding you in for the next thing that might fail. So you really fear that real transformation, right? The whole 180 degrees pivot, right? Or doing something drastically different. So that's definitely very real because it's going to be the question of like, hey, am I going to start from like bottom again? It's a career switch, and am I going to not be able to pay for my bills? Because I think the reality is with any startup or any new job, there's going to be a learning curve. And during this learning curve, you probably can't be expecting to make money because you probably need to prove yourself, have a track record until you start to generate revenue, like monetize. So that's definitely a big fear. And I think one of the things I'm trying to work through for myself as well is to do two things. Number one, I'm going to try to take fear as a signal to a knowledge gap. I think analytical person, right? Fear is because I don't know something. There is a unknown. So is there something I can do to address the unknown? Talk to a mentor, find resources online, ask ChatGPT, bridge that gap, right? A little bit more. And then work it down to the point that it's really just a number on the screen to say that I take like action on it. Then the second part is, if sometimes the reality is I'm exceeded, you might do all the work and still be scared. And I think that's where the second component comes in, is that maybe you have someone you trust, your tribe, or people who will be your accountability partners who will just drag you. So the recent example is I actually have a lot of resistance to wake up Saturday morning, go and learn a new tool, go and join this hackathon, we build with AI. And then, but Jonathan Chu and Nancy's like, yo, come, sign up. And it's like, okay, cool. But I really enjoyed the experience, and I wouldn't have really went through it if I didn't have accountability partners in both of you in dragging me there and making sure I sit in the seat there on time. And once I'm there, it is okay, let's go, right? So you need people
And then
like
now
that,
you're hooked to it, right? Now you enjoy it, right?
Of course, it's awesome, right?
Isn't that lovable?
Yeah. Which is also the same thing. Like when I did hitchhiking also, was I scared? Was I fearful of going to get kidnapped, killed, robbed, whatever? Sure, got one. Then I find a mentor, which is like the number one. So the formula is always the same one. Find mentor. This American friend of mine, Drew, he was hitchhiking for 2 years, got a lot of experience, tall, 6 foot, big guy, sure, no problem, take care of me. The token Asian guy, whatever, right? It's still scary. You still have to drag me and make me do it. It's like, damn, we take the plunge already, right? It's like, okay, we're in it already. Then it's like not so bad. And then I think it's the same thing in most things in life. And when you're doing something new, I always try to find someone who has done it before or is currently doing it and doing a few steps more. And then they will know that you'll be very fearful. When I was learning to surf as well, I'm very scared. Then don't dare to go further out. Play in the comfort zone, the smaller waves, and don't dare to go to the bigger wave section. But the guy's like, this is not even big, come on, just push you and go. And okay, go la. Then kena already, a few rounds, fall down already, kena washing machine, drink some water already, choke on some seawater. Then after that, you're like, hey, it's not so bad, still alive. Okay, let's go do it again. Then you overcome it and you realize, yeah, you're right. Actually, it's not very scary after all. It's the same with learning a new tool as well. It's not so big of a struggle after all. So that's something that I found to be a very repeatable experience with any new topic or new learning.
Yeah, I think like a lot of fear that we have, right, when it is projected in our mind, it's always bigger than what it actually is or what we actually experience. Sometimes we don't even experience the fear that we so fearful about that we're expecting to face, but it didn't happen. It's completely opposite. We have a lot of good experience out of it.
Yeah. So I definitely have a lot of people who sometimes I have to pay someone to do it. So sometimes I pay a fitness coach or something, right, to drag me to just do this thing. So I used to have beliefs about certain movements. So I stay away. Like I remember I hated shoulder press. I hated certain movements. I just stick to the confines of whatever I felt was like very comfortable for me. And I missed out on the value of that. But it took paying for a private trainer to like, okay, please challenge me. And he's like, I don't care, you do it. I know you don't like, but give it some time because this is actually better for you. Maybe you just don't know the proper movements. Let me show you and stick with it. And then once you stick through with it, actually, it did turn out. And today I actually enjoy shoulder presses. So it's like, you give it a chance, right? You'll be open to a new experience and you'll be open to changing your mind about things. So I've learned not to make like sweeping statements or like promises lah. I mean, even the whole idea of like corporate, right? This is a recent revelation lah. It's like maybe corporate isn't so bad after all, but why should I make the statement when I was younger, thinking that when corporate is bad, it's all these things is not great, and therefore I work with startups. But I've maybe looking back, I may have also missed out on other opportunities or other working with great people because I made that like unconscious promise to myself never to work for big corporates. Right? So be open to unlearning that law. Sometimes those beliefs, right, might have gotten me to this career of mine currently, but maybe it will not serve me for the next stage, so on and so forth. So sometimes it's about reviewing those things as well. And sometimes you also need your tribe or your people that you're close to you, right, to serve you some truth bombs, to like say, you say any, but how many more recent evidence of truth you have? They challenge you to think about it. And then you need to drop your ego and say,
Such a great advice though, talking about make that judgment of no, that's not for me, no, it's not gonna work, but give it a chance. Like it's always about, if you're open, you never know what's going to happen next. You never know
yeah,
if you turn out you're gonna like it, or turn out it's gonna help you or serve you or gain new skill, gain new network or friends. It's just never know.
yeah.
I think that's
And
such a good advice that you've given, the open possibilities.
Nice. So with that, right, I just wanted to pause for a moment, just to recount the different fantastic lessons, John, that you have shared right now. I was just writing them down. The first big advice that you have repeated throughout the session first is talk to people. Yeah, they might have experiences, stories that you could leverage on, and they may even have ideas that you could be sparked in your mind after speaking to them. So that was the first one. The second one is look for mentors. Sometimes if you need to pay, you may even need to pay them. But the point here is look for mentors. They have walked the path and they may be able to point you in the right direction or even walk the path with you, no matter how scary it gets. And the third thing is be open to unlearning what you thought was true. Because if you were open to unlearning, the world will literally be your oyster. All things will be possible for you. Is there anything else that you feel like we should highlight to our listeners as well?
if you ever feel that it's not worthwhile, maybe it's very scary to even ask someone. If that's even scary, I think I see life as an adventure game as well, as a quest. In fact, I even see that during my travel days. For those who are familiar with playing adventure games, you play a character and then some stats, and then you walk into a town, you need to find quests, right? And if you don't talk to that person with the exclamation mark or unlock the next quest to progress in life and get the rewards. So can you imagine now you want to play a game to win, right? But all you do is put the character, you stand there and don't do anything. Then it's like, how? You want to win the game, you want to win the coins and you want to win all the sword or new fancy stuff, right? So if you want that thing, you have to push yourself, go and talk to the guy with the exclamation mark, then you have to unlock a new quest, and the quest will probably tell you, go talk to this guy and then sort this fella thing out for you, go learn this thing, then go figure it out. Then just follow the track and see where it goes, lor. So I realized that when I started to see that perspective, like it's just a quest, I try to unlock the new quest again, and time to level up. I found that gives me a new sense of energy. I try to watch how I talk to myself. For example, I try to avoid saying I can't. And I'm usually quite annoyed when someone say I cannot. Then I will usually say, is it because you cannot or you don't like? Because there is a big difference. If you tell me you don't like, I can accept. If you say you cannot without trying, you've already put a ceiling on yourself without testing it. Of course, there are certain caveats, like can I be a superhuman, fly in the air, or like be a doctor without training? Then of course, there are certain caveats, but other things, I'm usually saying that maybe it's not because you can't, but it's maybe because you just don't value it or you just don't want it. And I just try to watch myself also, even when I talk to myself about it. So do I really want it so much that I will do whatever it takes to get it? Or actually, I don't really want it as much. There's something else that's actually more important to me. It could be the sense of security, the sense of comfort, or my ego. And that might not be a wrong thing necessarily. It's totally up to you. And maybe your family or your sense of familiarity, comfort is important to you right now. Then just confront that and accept that.
Nice. That's like self-coaching, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice. So one last question as we wrap up this segment. As you are thinking about the potential next chapter for yourself, I recall just now in the starting of this episode, you did share that you are driven by impact. So based on that, what would the next chapter kind of look like? Or what kind of professional do you want to become next? Perhaps not by title, but by impact. Yeah, I'm just trying to unpack that a little bit.
I don't know how to get there yet, but I would love my vision to be enabling people to live the lives that they choose. And if I were to distill it down to 3 facets of it, is I hope I can inspire the creativity in people to dream the dream and then give them the courage or support them with the courage to take the first step. And then of course, lastly, maybe support them to have the discipline and persistence to see it through and bring it to life. And there's a lot of components that's packed into that. So for some people, to make it real, it could be maybe even like, what are the possibilities first? Then after the possibilities, I don't know what's the next, but maybe the next 1-2 years I want to do this. Great. Who can you talk to? What can you do? And of course, maybe there's financial aspects that come into it as well, right? Cash flow or things you have to do, financial planning. So that's also the big part why I'm also into like investment and financial planning, is because, like it or not, the things we want in life sometimes needs to have money paying for it. So how do we create that means? That's also the practical side of things, and that's why I'm passionate about it, because it's about how can you set all these things up. Maybe you spend 5 to 7 years doing it so that the next 20 years you can live that desired lifestyle that you want. How can we enable that? Is that truly possible? I think it is. There is possibility. I've seen references like you hustle for 7 years and then suddenly you become a nomad, travel everywhere, and then do whatever you want without having to be fixed in a certain location. There's a lot of reference even from the States or European countries coming to live in Asia. We can do the same equivalent, going to maybe a more affordable country, so on and so forth. But it's like, there is definitely possibilities. And going into all these components, how can we not just talk about the fluffy goal, and even though that can be very inspiring, but they can quickly dissipate into the reality when you have to pay the bills. So how do you work a progressive ladder and set a reasonable timeline? I want to get to this destination to live this desired lifestyle. How much am I willing to hustle right now? That's balancing what's also important in my life, like whether it's health, family, relationships, to get there. And so I'm passionate to be in this space, right? So it's also like, what are the new skills you want to be equipped? So part of PivotLab as well for myself and also for the people you work with is like, how do we equip people with the necessary tech skills that's actually in demand? And the beautiful thing about tech skills is that tech skills enable you to be remote and any geography, right? It's not tied to a certain location. So that gives you even more possibilities as well. Then I think if you do that and you pair that with great investment skills or stacking assets to give you some cash flow, I think your dream life is really just a few moves away. I really believe that.
Nice. So the creativity to envision the life you want, the courage to take the first step, and the discipline to keep at it.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to be kind to yourself. Sometimes like you may not have the creativity, find people to help you, find a community. If you don't have the courage, find someone to help you. If you have the discipline, that's why some people don't work out well alone. They join classes or they go to a gym membership with a gym partner, because that community or maybe going for an event is what drives them. So you can kind of like evaluate what works for you. It's kind of like a strategy in a game you play against yourself. Maybe the natural self don't like this, and it's not your job to push yourself against your willpower, but be creative to come up with game plan to remove the friction, make it easy for you. So it's like life of a series of personal hacks for yourself also lah. So one example is I would not work out if the job of me getting to the gym is such a tedious part. So buy a few sets of gym, reduce it to a very minimal set of workouts that's compounding and very easy to do. Then you get out of your bed, it's like, oh, the gym is right here. You have no excuses. Please do a few weights and then make sure you do the simple ones that's all compounding, and then just track it on the sheet. Next thing you know, when you're tracking it, the next natural inclination is maybe like your ego take over. Say, hey, I cannot be lifting lesser than last time. I'll be pushing more and more. Then once you push more, it's like, I already spent all the effort working out. Why must I throw it all the way by eating bad food, right? Then you start to treat your body right. Then the things will start to come slowly into place, and then you just observe, like you treat yourself like an experiment. How does your body, how do you react, and how do you counter that? So it's about being creative to design things that manage the way you work, and then all while leading you to the ultimate goal, the path that you have in mind.
Okay, John, we are at our last segment of the lightning round. So we're going to ask you a few questions. Okay, the first one would be one book, podcast, or resource that has shaped how you think about work.
In my latest phase of life, I think I like Cody Sanchez's podcast. And I think she's really advocate this notion of like boring business, making it very accessible. Maybe entrepreneurship can also happen through the means of acquisition, not just creating from scratch. So that I found that very, very fascinating. And she lists down very, very creative ways of doing it as well. So she comes from like, oh yeah, someone can do it and just take a boring business and then take it from there. And I found some of those steps and then some of the reflections very inspiring. So that's something that I'm very into right now.
Okay, then the next one would be one word to describe your journey at the moment.
No, it's an adventure. I love it as an adventure, and I'll always see it as an adventure. I'm always looking forward to what's next. Recently been in the space of like a lot of gratefulness lah. Like I think I've been doing certain things or achieving certain things that I don't even imagine that my younger self have even dreamed. So I remember 95% my second job. I remember telling John, hey, this is my dream car, and I put up Suzuki Swift Sport on the pictures. I wanted to own, and at that point of time, I cannot even imagine. Wow, this car at that point of time was like 80,000, 90,000 ringgit. I was like, cannot imagine owning a car like that. That was like beyond what's possible, right? Or like if you tell me like that same John back then in 95%, that's only like what? I would say 10 years ago. 7 to 10 years ago, right? If you tell him that, oh, you have like acquired X amount of property in portfolio and all these things, you will build all your assets until this stage, you'll be like, the fellow will be thinking at you, staring at you, like, how is it even possible? I wouldn't even dream it also today. So for those of you, sometimes we don't really remember to look back. Yeah, sometimes give yourself a pat on the back and like try to imagine like what would your younger self, right? Like what the person in high school and this is for me career professionals. Like if you're holding a certain position in a company right now, you might feel like pivoting because you don't see value. But maybe you got here this far, your younger self will be very proud of you because maybe you're living beyond their dreams already, and maybe give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah, don't be too harsh on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So the last one, a dream guest for Pivot. Maybe the next one that you think we can invite.
Dream guest for Pivot. I think in my mind right now, the first one that came to my mind is Yi Heng. So a friend of mine, he does property reviews for a living. I think his story is equally as, even more, actually I won't say equally, even more interesting, very, very vibrant. The way that he has, I think he's shared some of his stories about how he's managed his career. And I would love for him to be able to share all the pivots and all the stories and like hear from his, how he has grown and evolved this time, right? And to me, he is someone that I think is living his dream life. He's fulfilled. How I know is that he wakes up, he has the freedom to decide what he wants to do, and he could do it. And to him, right, his current job is not a work for him lah. He's truly living his passion, fully fulfilled. So I'm very, very happy, and I would love that for everyone to achieve that kind of like that zone also. And I also want to achieve it. So I want to selfishly also have him on the podcast so I can pick more gems from him.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So I guess that's all. John, do you want to add anything?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing so freely about your journey, about your thought process. Really happy to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was a joy to listen to your adventures.
Hopefully more to come for all three of us.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in to the PivotLab Podcast. We hope today's story gave you both inspiration and insight, something you can carry into your own next move. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and Substack for the latest episodes, content, and tools to help you design what's next. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, share the love. Most importantly, let's stay connected. We've got more stories, strategies, and blueprints coming your way. Until next time, keep going. Your next chapter is already unfolding.